local and international newspaper headlines for the day with in-depth analysis from seasoned professionals. Start your day the right way on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
We start your day the right way every morning on 99.3 Nigeria Info. You're welcome to the show. It's called the Morning Crossfire, and this is a part where we take a look at the stories on the papers this morning. And we have here the Punch newspaper, The Guardian, Daily Independent, Vanguard, also here on my side.
We have the Daily Sun here, the Nation, Daily Trust, and the Blueprint newspaper.
And we're also live on Facebook and YouTube at Nigeria Info FM. You can watch us anywhere you are. You can also listen all over the world on our website, nigeriainfo.fm. Anytime you like, you can listen to all of our shows up there on our website. Rotimi Sankore is joining us this morning. Rotimi, good morning.
Morning.
And I'm Wemimo Adewuni.
I am Sheriff Quadry.
Let's start with this story here on the Punch newspaper. Banner headline here, $9.6 billion judgment. Malami IG Emefiele lead federal government team to UK legal battle. PNID submits list of targeted Nigerian assets on Thursday. You find this on the Punch. It's also on the Guardian. Government dispatches delegation to UK over $9.6 billion judgment debt. It's also here on the Vanguard. $9.6 billion judgment debt. We're pursuing all options to set aside cash award, says Malami, as Nigeria legal team departs for London ahead of Thursday's case.
Let me flip over to the Nation. This morning, Nigeria launches battle to quash $9.6 billion verdict in UK. Right as federal government seeks extradition of PNID owner's son to face charges. AGF, IG, CBN governor, EFCC boss, information minister in London. Very powerful delegation. The Nation is the paper. Let's move on to Daily Trust. The $9.6 billion judgment. Ex-CJN Belgore may be arraigned in FCT court. Daily Trust newspaper. Rotimi, it seems the battle line has been drawn.
Well, we haven't seen the last of this matter, and I suspect there will still be many big revelations. A word of caution, however, that the federal government, in a bid to make up for its initial lapses of not keeping up with the proceedings on this matter, should not take any action that can potentially make the case worse. I think most people would agree that this matter has spanned many governments. I think this is the third government now. So it spanned both PDP and APC. If this current government had paid enough attention to the proceedings, it would not even have gotten to this level. And many commentators have pointed out that a government that doesn't pay attention to court proceedings in its own country or does not respect court judgments in its own country will probably ignore court proceedings and judgments outside until we are under threat of losing so much money. Now, I'm not sure what the role of the Minister of Information is in this delegation, or even the IG. The Attorney General definitely. What we need there is our best legal minds, to try and mitigate the circumstances. Going to Europe to go and call a Nigerian-style press conference is not going to help the matter at all. Because, the information minister normally speaks with a lot of bombast and attacks people as if everybody that criticizes or points out a better way that policy can be implemented is an enemy. This won't work in Europe. In fact, it could make matters worse. So if anybody is listening, they should send the gentleman a message now and,
Well,
say that that's not what you go and do in Europe.
Right. The AGF has said in a telephone interview on Sunday that the federal government was still considering all options in its efforts to upturn the judgment of the UK court. When asked whether the government will be filing a new case based on recent developments, especially the conviction it secured against the firm in Abuja on Thursday, or if it would build on previous judgment. Two representatives of PNID had on Thursday pleaded guilty before the Federal High Court in Abuja to charges of fraud and tax evasion instituted against them in respect of the contract leading to the controversial judgment. But remember that PNID had later said those persons no longer works for the company and could not represent them. But the Minister of Justice said the government would adopt the option that would be most beneficial. According to him, I quote, all cards on the table, but it all depends on the one that has potency for setting aside the award, having regard to the applicable law in the circumstances. No possibility is ruled out. So we keep following this story for you. It's not
the one
wrapped
that we
up
have
anymore.
potency is the action they take in the courts where the big ruling against Nigeria was made.
Yeah, so
Look,
they're heading over to
legal
London.
commentators have already pointed out that this conviction of the PID people and the dissolution of the company and so forth. Legal experts have pointed out that, that case ran through the courts at Usain Bolt's speed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it did.
yeah, and some people have suggested that, in fact, the judgment was, in quotes, secured ahead of ahead of the travel to
Really?
UK.
Well,
I've been looking at what a lot of the legal experts are saying, and legal experts really are saying that in Nigeria, where court cases take 20 years,
it's quite a miracle that
even
this
high-level corruption cases against ex-governors,
quickly their tax papers were sorted
ministers,
through. Yeah.
yes.
But it's good for us if it works and if it can hold water. But let's see this next story. The Guardian has it. Army launches Operation Identify Yourselves to track fleeing terrorists and others. This is on the front page of The Guardian. It's also reported on the Daily Independent. Northeast Army targets Boko Haram, asks everyone to carry ID card.
But Rotimi, here's the angle to this particular story. So you're going to the Northeast and you're saying that people must identify themselves with valid means of identification, and they're actually emphasizing on national ID card. Even where there is no conflict, people don't have national ID card. How is this supposed to work, really?
Well, actually, that's a secondary matter. The primary matter here is that this is not the role of the army. The army is encroaching on the role of the police. Soldiers can't start stopping people on the road and say, where is your ID card? Look, the moment that starts to happen, we are going to see what happened with SARS happening with a lot of young people.
All over again.
Yes, a lot of young people don't have ID. They've just left school. They don't have work. Imagine soldiers armed with automatic rifles stopping young people and saying, where is your ID? And the thing turns into an altercation. Soldiers are not trained to handle this kind of things. It's a mistake. And accidents are going to happen. And when the accidents happen and human rights organizations object, they will say that those people are anti-Buhari or anti-government. It's always important. Things have to be sorted before they go wrong. Right. This is not the role of the army. Well, it is overreach.
Rotimi, the army is worried that some communities have started harboring.
It is not the role of the army. It doesn't matter what they are worrying about.
But
it's the role of the police.
The army is the one prosecuting the war against terror in the Northeast.
No, but if they are fighting a war against terror, they cannot then intervene in civil matters. Army can start setting up checkpoints all over the country and asking people for their ID.
Well, they have called
especially when we know that the majority of people in Nigeria,
don't have
young
IDs.
People don't have ID. It's going to lead to
Operation
problems.
Positive identification against fleeing Boko Haram and ISWAP terrorists in the Northeast. The Deputy Director, Army Public Relations, Colonel Adoisa, disclosed this on Sunday. He urged the public to always carry valid means of identification when moving or passing through Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe State. He said the operation was aimed at searching for and arresting all suspected terrorists that currently roam some parts of the northeast. So this, according to him, became necessary following credible information that some of the fleeing criminals hibernating in some towns and villages in Borno and Yobe State in particular, and northeast in general. He advised people to carry national identification card, voters registration cards, driver's license, international passport, or other valid official ID.
These are parts of the country where
right,
every expert is in agreement that it is the lack of governance presence, lack of investment in education, high unemployment, and so forth, that accelerated that conflict there.
Civil registration is very poor.
So yes, so I mean, you are not registered when you are born. You are not registered when you pass away. You know, the local governments don't function. You can travel 200 or 300 miles before you see a sign of local government, and the literacy level is low.
And if you're not 18, you don't have a voter card. You certainly don't have a driver's license. Right. You've not traveled before, so you don't have a passport. So what do you have?
Which exactly is my point, that a lot of young men are going to get into unnecessary complication.
Here. That's right.
Because how does the army tell whether you are 16 or 18?
Mm-hmm. Now, or even 17.
Or even 17. You know, now if you are older and you are not literate, the idea of ID card is not on your horizon at all.
Right.
So if they start arresting 60, 70, 80, look, there is this UNDP report that was written last year. And that UNDP report on extremism and the growth of extremist-based conflict underlined one point, which is that in most of Nigeria, the main recruiting sergeants for extremist organizations is high-handedness on the part of the armed forces and of security agents. In other parts of Africa, there are other triggers. But in Nigeria, this, you know, one of the really thoroughly researched reports, it covered all of Africa, and in every country where there's extremism and conflict, they measured all the indicators based on thousands of interviews with people in communities, recruits that have repented, innocent bystanders, and even members of the armed forces. So, this thing is going to lead to very, very serious problems. I seriously call on the army to look at this carefully,
and the police to step up
and step back and leave this work for the police.
Incidentally, this is one of the topics that we're treating this week as an NIMC issue, because it's been hard to even get to register,
even in cities,
even in Lagos. Even in Lagos.
Well, let's move on and talk about Osinbajo. He's not leaving the news anytime soon. Also, banner headline of the Daily Independent: plot to remove trader money from Osinbajo thickens. It will be difficult to remove Vice President, says Tony Momo here on the front page of the Daily Independent. This story is also across other dailies today. That's
right. It's here on the front page of Daily Sun. More trouble for Osinbajo. Forces want to use VP's actions as acting president against him. Northern president in 2023 still top on agenda.
Let me read this story from the Daily Independent. Facts emerged at the weekend on why members of the cabal in the presidency want the National Social Investment Programs taken away from the office of the Vice President and handed over to the newly created Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development. Speaking with Daily Independent on Sunday, a credible source in the presidency said the deal had already been perfected and that Vice President Yemi Osinbajo may no longer be in charge of the SIP, except President Muhammadu Buhari intervened. According to the source, members of the cabal were not comfortable with the popularity the vice president was getting with the scheme, especially among the masses, and the need to move it away from his office. The federal government introduced a portfolio of social investment program in 2015 under the office of the vice president with the goal of taking millions of Nigerian citizens out of poverty. And on this goes. So if there is a Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, certainly the SIP would be under this ministry.
Look, there is something going on.
Or why else did we create this ministry?
There is something going on in the presidency with regards to the vice president, and I have to be honest, I'm yet to put my finger on it. There have been too many, sort of, when people start making allegations against somebody for which they have not presented evidence,
Right.
and they are just dropping it, the person is this, the person is that. You can always tell that something sinister is wrong, and it's just a question of time before we find out.
When.
It's a question of time before we find out who it is.
Rotimi, they said he authorized payment of 59 billion naira to NEMA, that's the National Emergency Management Agency, without approval from the National Assembly. They also accuse him of signing 25 billion naira for NNPC as a funding contract. They said he has no such powers to do so.
Okay, so it's a process issue, but you can already hear some people talking about corruption.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people would be in agreement that on the evidence of what we know, the vice president does not look like one of these politicians that is traditionally corrupt. I think most people would be in agreement with that on the evidence of what we know. Vice president
looking like he's not.
The vice president
enough.
does not look like a traditionally corrupt politician.
How do they look? What's the look?
The person will have antecedents now. The person will have
maybe you say antecedents, but there's not looking
no,
like.
I'm not talking about look at handsome.
The underlying word is traditional.
I am not
What's
talking.
traditional?
I'm not talking about traditional.
You know what they say. You know what they say.
politician.
It is only the person that you find or that you catch that you can talk
Look,
about.
Wemimo, the point I'm
there
trying to
isn't
make.
any
The point I'm all commentary on public officials and public policy has to be fair.
This is being fair.
Yeah,
You're saying it doesn't look like. What do they look like?
No, the point I'm making is this. There is no antecedent or evidence that the vice president
had in the past.
Yes.
Now that's
even now, the allegations are just, is these things that people go and drop in corner against people and hope that it gathers steam. We see this thing happening in all parts of life.
Well, if these allegations have been made, they should be investigated.
Yes, it should be investigated, but it is also important to point out that there is something going on there.
Certainly there is.
Which, we haven't yet put our finger on. But sooner or later, it is going to show. So the vice president is a senior advocate of Nigeria.
Right.
He's also a professor of law.
Right.
My old schoolmates, colleagues, and friends that are fellow senior advocates and also professor of law, politics aside, they hold him in reasonably high esteem. Politics aside, because when you are a member of a political party, you are involved in many things that lose you respect.
Right.
And this government has done many things which people expected him to speak up against.
It still
but
doesn't
he's the vice president.
It still doesn't mean it can be corrupt.
Yes, but
Exactly
until the evidence,
until it should be investigated.
until the
That's
evidence is presented, innocent until proven guilty.
That's right.
But the matter should be investigated.
By all
That's
means. But this is something that everybody needs to keep an eye on. Because when people start saying that actions he took as acting president are being held against him.
No, now that.
You can start seeing
now that's
political.
just being unreasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's mention this story. Very interesting. Lightning strikes dead 36 cows on Sacred Hill in Ondo. It makes it across many papers.
So one paper said it was thunder that struck them.
Well, this is on the front page of the Daily Independent. It's also here on the Guardian. Thunder kills 36 cows in Ondo community.
Thunder does not kill people.
And go read that. And the picture.
A clap of thunder. People should just go and check out the science of the thing. A clap of thunder. It's in the cloud up there. This thing that people say, thunder fire you. Thunder does not fire anybody. It's just a loud noise in the sky.
All right.
It is lightning that hits the ground.
Right.
And if you check, I am sure, if you check that place, you'll probably find iron ore deposits or something that repeatedly attracts the lightning strike.
But this report says it's a sacred.
Funny enough, this report is. It was even hard getting a major story, but this particular one is everywhere, and I don't know why.
Because it's interesting, but it's a secret.
Is it?
It is.
Okay.
We're not aware of zoning says Arewa. This is against 2023 presidency. It's on the front page of the Daily Independent. You can go read up some more.
As they say, who's
here.
running up?
And also on the Punch newspaper, similar headline: female military officer killed, corpse dumped in well. Really sad story that went round
Before
yesterday.
you run out of time,
Commandant.
this show matter.
Yeah, it's
which
not
is
on the front
also-
pages.
Yeah, we're discussing it tomorrow, Rotimi. It
It's-
promises to be really,
it's-
really interesting.
Yes, yes. So the reason I'm raising it is this: it was one of the biggest news items over the weekend.
Right.
So it's not on the front pages this
Interestingly,
morning.
it didn't make it to any of the front
Yeah,
pages.
because it was on Friday, so it was in the papers over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so the papers are not going to repeat headlines Saturday, Sunday, and then
Oh.
Monday. You know, but it is
Interesting.
in the papers, but not just as big headline.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Wale Soyinka and some other Serap and some other
Serap,
people have pointed out that this, treasonable felony and all, that it is too much. It's going to embarrass the government.
In fact,
long
I
term.
hear there is a count that said he insulted the presidency, but with the documents I saw, the document had the charges counts 1, 2, 3, then 6 and 7, and I was asking where's the count 4 and 5. So I didn't see that.
It's going to
wrong.
embarrass the government. Last. Why? Because how can sloganeering? At worst, it is sloganeering.
Right.
How can sloganeering be treason? Somebody say revolution now. It's a slogan. It's a hashtag. There is no evidence that he committed treason.
Right.
And I always tell people, and I always urge government to pay attention to what citizens are saying. If he's found guilty along with the others, the punishment is death by hanging. They can't seriously believe that is going to go down well anytime, anywhere. It's going to be worse than the Kensarawa matter.
Well, that's why the courts are going to look into the matter, and they need to be fair.
I'm even convinced that half the people, or majority of those in the Justice Department or DSS, don't believe this thing.
Well,
Because these are people. Look, ordinarily you want to believe that they know the law.
Mm-hmm.
And they know, and at least in the DSS, you want to hope that they are capable of proper strategic threat analysis. Bandits and extremists that have actually carried arms and razed towns and villages down and seized ground are being released and negotiated with.
right, and they
And
are
being
being told they can
pardoned.
even become
Yes,
governors
and I remember
presidents.
one senior army officer was telling some repented Boko Haram extremists that with this their repentance, they can now be fully rehabilitated, and one day any of them can run for president.
Yeah.
There's even a particular headline this morning about Mietiala going against pardoning convicted or apprehended cattle rustlers and bandits. They're saying
Because the rustlers are stealing their cattle.
don't pardon them.
Let's read some messages from Facebook. Michael Edwok is joining us from Denmark. Oh, wow, thank you. Okanigwan Gift Rex says, good morning. Morning to you too. Chukezie Emery is joining us from Mina. Thank you. Femi Tawo says, good morning, Mr. Rotimi, Sankore, Wemimo and Sheriff. Thank you for saying hi. Fire Michael Johnson says, Rotimi, you are wrong in capital letters because the
On
North... here we go. It says the Northeast is a war zone and the army calls the shots in the theater of war. It's not the only one who shares his thoughts. It says, goes on to say, checkpoints are in the Northeast, not all over the country. Also here, someone else shares that thought. And that is Festus Okundia says, police cannot handle issues with Boko Haram. Army is in constant contact with them and can identify them more easily and not the police. Also here, wow, really? Your comment is as long as a book. I certainly can't read
We are talking
this.
of civilian checkpoint, though.
Yeah, so...
Not army that is going to fight people that are carrying arms. What the army has said is that everybody should carry one form of government ID or
that
not.
means they will be checking for
Yes,
those
I mean,
ID.
that's not the... look, I'm sorry to say.
But do you think
lot-
really that
a-
the police can do this effectively? That's the point they are making. The current crop of police that we have
In conflict zone,
in the Northeast.
in conflict zone where arms are being used, the work of the army is to restore the security. The police does the policing. The government then does the rebuilding. The rebuilding will include rapid rebuilding of schools, hospitals.
But we don't
job
have that
skills.
ideal situation yet. So right now, can the police do that work?
It's
right
not.
now,
It's not whether
in
it
the
is
Northeast?
ideal or not. The army itself is overstretched.
Can
the-
the police
the
do
job
this
of the
job
army
right now?
The job of the army is to fight the insurgents.
You've not answered my question.
I think the
Can
appropriate
the
question
police do
is
it?
who is in charge
It's
of
checkpoints now.
But who is in
Why can't the
charge?
police do
And they
checkpoints?
can
who is in
find-
charge in the Northeast, the army or the police?
right now? Because
Because
it's
according,
really,
according to that
which is the point they're
contributor,
making.
it's a war front.
It's not a war front. It is a conflict zone.
Hmm.
The army is fighting the insurgents. The Nigerian police still has authority in the Northeast.
Right.
Leave the checking of ID card
To the police.
to the police.
Let me read a
Let
final
the army
comment.
fight the insurgents.
A
People are
final
mixing
comment-
up two things.
Right, a final comment from Mamana Buchina says Showore's arrest and charges really proved Nigeria as a country where state brutally manifests in dissenting voices. Oh, this is long. Where bandits, kidnappers, killer headsmen, and other terrorists have weakened the state. If they could only dissipate the same energies and resources against this endemic corruption, we would have been closer to El Dorado. Thank you, Dr. Manambuchin, and thank you all for joining the live stream. Thank you all also on Twitter. Wow, couldn't read any message in from here, but thank you also on YouTube. Thanks for joining us. Let's see one comment on Twitter though. Emmanuel Hieme says, Army, a government asking people to carry ID card when going out, and the means of acquiring one is not easy at all. What is wrong with Nigeria as a country? He says, let me rest my case here. Thank you.
Please do.
We'll be back after this very quick break, and we'll be talking about the first Patient Safety Day. The UN inaugurated the very first. It was last week. So we're talking about healthcare and World Patient Safety Day. How safe are you at the hospitals? The number of people that die even in hospitals while seeking treatment. That's our conversation for the next 1 hour. Rotimi Sankore, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Wemimo Adewuni.
And I'm Sheriff Quadry. We're back in a moment.
That's right.
More news and information coming up. We'll be back in a moment.